Doctor stood at the edge of the pit, looking down into darkness that seemed to swallow the light from their scanning equipment. The scientist's four eyes adjusted slowly, trying to make sense of what the sensors were telling them. Below, buried under 3 kilometers of rock and frozen earth, something vast waited. "How old?" asked, not taking their eyes off the readings. The youngest member of the expedition checked the dating equipment twice before answering. "At least 2,000 standard years, maybe more. The radiation decay suggests major warfare, but the timeline is strange." The planet designated Sol 3 had not been kind to whatever civilization built those structures below. The expedition had been surveying dead worlds for 6 cycles now, cataloging the remains of species that reached for the stars and fell short. This was supposed to be another routine stop, a quick scan, some samples, and move on to the next graveyard. But this was different. Gestured to the drilling team. "Begin excavation, carefully. Whatever is down there, it has lasted this long. I want it intact." 3 days of drilling brought them to the first chamber. The moment stepped through the breach, they knew this discovery would change everything. The room stretched out in perfect preservation, sealed away from the dead world above. Emergency lighting flickered on automatically, responding to their movement after of waiting. The walls were covered in images. Bipedal creatures with 2 arms, 2 legs standing upright. They had no fur, no scales, no natural armor, just soft skin and fragile bodies. Yet the images showed them everywhere. They showed these creatures in vast cities, in flying machines, standing on the surface of their moon. They were called humans, said, reading from a plaque that their translation software had managed to decode. This world was named Earth. Moved deeper into the complex. More chambers opened before them, each one a snapshot of a civilization frozen in time. They found skeletons, still wearing the remnants of clothing that had mostly rotted away. The bones were shockingly delicate, had studied dozens of extinct species, and none had been this fragile. "How did they survive long enough to build all this?" someone asked. It was a fair question. The galaxy's successful species all had something that made them formidable. They had their size and strength. They had natural armor and redundant organs. They had poisonous defenses. These humans seemed to have nothing. The answer came in the next chamber. Weapons, hundreds of them, thousands, locked behind glass that had somehow survived the ages. Examined them with growing unease. These were not ceremonial items or hunting tools. These were instruments designed for one purpose: killing other humans. "They fought each other," said quietly. But that was not the disturbing part. Every species had wars. What disturbed was the progression. The weapons started simple, crude metal that threw projectiles using chemical explosions. Then they became more sophisticated. Then came evidence of nuclear weapons, biological agents, things that made skin prickle with instinctive fear. "How long did their civilization last?" asked. Checked the timeline they had pieced together, from their first cities to this complex, roughly 10,000 years. 10,000 years. That had taken 40,000 years to achieve spaceflight. Most species took even longer. These humans had done it in a fraction of the time. They moved deeper. The complex went down for kilometers, level after level. Each new section revealed more about the humans. They found libraries with millions of data storage devices. Most were corrupted beyond recovery, but some still held fragments of information. They found laboratories where humans had manipulated their own genetics, trying to improve themselves, fix themselves, change themselves. They found art. Beautiful, terrible art that showed both the heights of human achievement and the depths of their capacity for destruction. And everywhere, on every major wall, they found the same symbol, a clock, frozen at the same moment, 23:59:47. "What does it mean?" asked. Did not know, not yet. The team worked for days, cataloging and recording. The deeper they went, the more questions arose. This was not a city or a military base. This was something else. A vault. A preservation facility. The humans had known their world was dying, and they had built these chambers to save what they could. In the deepest level they had reached so far found the cryogenic chambers, rows upon rows of metal pods, each one sealed and marked with human writing. Most were dark, their contents long since failed, but some still showed power readings. Faint, barely there but present. Are these what I think they are? Approached one of the pods carefully. Checked the readings. Cryogenic suspension. They put themselves to sleep, waiting for the surface to heal. The scientist looked up at the ceiling, thinking of the barren wasteland above. It never did. But some are still active. Does that mean? Do not touch anything, said sharply. We do not know what safety systems might still be operational. But it was too late. Had reached out to wipe dust from one of the viewing ports, and their hand brushed against a control panel. The chamber hummed. Lights that had been dark for thousands of years flickered on. Somewhere deep in the walls, machinery began to wake. Red emergency lighting flooded the room. Blast doors had not even noticed began to seal. The team scattered, some making it through before the doors closed, others trapped in different sections, and found themselves sealed in the cryogenic chamber. The scientists immediately tried their communication device, but something was interfering with the signal. They were cut off. A screen on the wall came to life. Text scrolled across it in human writing. The translation software struggled, then provided an approximation. Continuity Protocol ACTIVATED. Initializing Human Legacy Preservation System. What did you do? Demanded. I just touched it. I did not mean to. A sound cut through their argument. Metal on metal, rhythmic and purposeful. Something was moving in the sealed sections beyond their chamber, pulled out their scanner and aimed it at the walls. The readings made no sense. Biological signatures, multiple ones, growing stronger. That is impossible, whispered. The decay rate, anything organic down here should be dust by now. But the readings did not lie. Something was alive in the darkness beyond the walls, and it was moving toward them. Through the red emergency lighting, spotted a security terminal still functioning in the corner. They rushed to it, pulling up what footage they could access. The cameras showed corridors they had not yet explored, chambers still sealed, and movement. Gasped, what are those? Shapes moved through the corridors. At first they seemed like shadows, but then the camera adjusted. They were humanoid, but wrong somehow. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed unnatural for those fragile skeletons they had seen. One passed close to a camera and got a clear look. It was human, or had been once. Its skin was pale, almost translucent. Tubes and wires connected to ports in its body, trailing back into the walls. Its eyes were open but empty, and it moved with mechanical precision. The life support systems, realized. They kept them alive. For 2,000 years the machines kept them alive. More appeared on the screens. Some walked on their own. Others were carried by medical drones, their bodies too deteriorated to function. Defense robots rolled through the corridors, ancient but still operational, and everywhere the red lights pulsed like a heartbeat. We need to get out of here, said. Was already working on the terminal trying to access the door controls, but the system was locked down. Whatever protocol had triggered, it had full control now. The scientist pulled up file after file, trying to understand what was happening. Then they found it, a mission briefing recorded before the complex was sealed. A human face appeared on the screen, a woman wearing what looked like a military uniform. She spoke in her native language, but the translation software caught most of it. If you are seeing this, the continuity protocol has been activated by external presence. This vault contains the last genetic and cultural repository of humanity. We died, not all at once but slowly, as our world burned and choked on what we made it become. This vault is our legacy, our gift and our warning to whoever finds it. The people in the pods volunteered to sleep until Earth healed. They are guardians of human knowledge. If you have triggered this system, it will assume you are here to help. It will try to communicate. Please understand that they have been asleep for a very long time. We do not know what state they will be in when they wake. The message ended. They think we are here to help them, said. Looked at the screens again. More of the cryogenic humans were emerging now, guided by the automated systems. Some seemed aware, looking around with confusion. Others moved like puppets, their bodies animated but their minds elsewhere. And they were all coming toward the chamber and were trapped. The scanner showed them getting closer. 50 meters, 40, 30. Worked frantically at the terminal trying to find something, anything that would open the door or shut down the protocol. Files flashed past, technical specifications, security measures, and then something that made their blood run cold. A database of human technology, weapons research, artificial intelligence programs, genetic modification projects, self-replicating war machines, bioweapons tailored to specific genetic markers, theoretical weapons that could crack the crust of a planet. Humanity had not been just self-destructive, they had been dangerous. The footsteps were right outside now. Through the door's small window could see movement. A hand pressed against the glass, pale and cold. Then a face. Human features preserved but wrong. Eyes that had seen too much, held too many dreams, waited too long. The human's mouth moved. Sound came through, garbled and broken. A voice that had not spoken in trying to form words. Help us, Earth, save, please. More hands pressed against the door. More faces appeared. Dozens of them, all trying to speak, their voices overlapping into a chorus of broken pleas. Backed away. We have to go, we have to leave now. Found an override command. Emergency evacuation protocol. It would blow the blast doors, but it would also flood the corridor with coolant. The humans outside would not survive it. We have no choice, said, reaching for the control. But they hesitated. These were not monsters. These were victims, kept alive by machines that did not understand mercy, waking to a world that had forgotten them. The decision was made for them. The blast doors groaned, then began to open on their own. The automated system was letting them out, but as the gap widened, saw what was beyond. Dozens of humans, some walking, some crawling, all reaching out. Behind them, defense robots advanced with weapons armed. Grabbed arm, run. They ran. Through corridors that twisted and turned, past chambers they had explored days before that now seemed like traps. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit. Metal scraping stone. Voices calling out in languages dead for 2,000 years. Alarms wailing. The team's ship was on the surface, 3 kilometers straight up. They had to reach the elevator shaft they had installed during excavation. Its communicator crackled to life as they got closer to the surface. Other team members were reporting in, scattered throughout the complex, all hearing the same sounds, all running for their lives. Stay with me, shouted. But something grabbed, a medical drone moving with impossible speed. It wrapped restraints around the young, lifting them off the ground. Screamed, not in pain but in terror. The drone was taking them deeper into the complex. Had to choose, save or reach the surface. They reached for their weapon, but something made them stop. On a nearby screen, text appeared, the same message over and over. Do not harm the VISITORS. They are here to help, preserve and protect. The system thought they were saviors. It was trying to keep them safe, to show them what needed to be saved. But it did not understand that they were intruders, not rescuers. Ran for the elevator. They could hear screams fading into the distance, echoing through the ancient halls. Other team members were ahead, already at the shaft, climbing desperately toward the surface. The scientists reached the elevator last, pulling themselves up the emergency ladder. Below, in the red-lit darkness, shapes gathered. hundreds of them now all looking up. Some raised their hands, reaching. Others simply stood and watched with empty eyes. Climbed faster, not looking back. They reached the surface as the sun was setting over the dead world. The team stumbled to their ship, sealing the airlock behind them. In the pilot's seat, initiated launch procedures with shaking hands. "What about?" someone asked. Did not answer. Could not answer. They had left behind in the dark with the remnants of a species that had died trying to save itself. The ship broke atmosphere. Behind them, the excavation site was still visible, a dark scar on the barren landscape. And then, as they watched, something activated. A massive antenna array rose from the ground, unfolding like a mechanical flower. It had been hidden beneath the surface all along. Lights began to pulse along its length, energy gathered, and then it transmitted. A signal broadcasting into the deep void of space. Not random noise, but a message, clear and purposeful. The ship's computer analyzed it automatically, providing a translation. "Humanity's cradle has visitors. Children of Earth, come home." Felt ice in their veins. They pulled up their scans of the database they had glimpsed, the files about human history, and there it was, buried in the corrupted data. Records of colony ships, dozens of them sent out before Earth's collapse, carrying millions of humans into other star systems. The beacon was not calling to Earth, it was calling to them, to the children of humanity who had left their dying world behind. And somewhere out in the vast darkness of space, something heard it. Set course for the nearest Confederation outpost, pushing the engines as hard as they dared. Behind them, the beacon continued to broadcast, and in the ruins below, the awakened humans waited for their children to come home. The ship's computer began picking up new readings, thermal signatures in orbit. The cryogenic systems in the vault were not the only things the beacon had awakened. Defensive satellites were powering up, ancient but still functional. Weapons platforms that had guarded Earth in its final days were coming online. "Faster," ordered. "Get us out of this system now." They escaped barely as the first satellite began tracking them. The ship jumped to faster than light, leaving Sol 3 behind. But knew this was not over. They had awakened something on that dead world, something that had been waiting for 2,000 years. And now, because of their intrusion, a message was spreading through the galaxy, a call to humans who had never forgotten their home. In 6 months, they would have their answer. In 6 months, they would learn if humanity was truly extinct, or if it had merely been sleeping, scattered among the stars, waiting for someone to call them back. Looked at the data they had managed to copy from the vault's database. Files and files of human history, technology, culture, and one final message, added just before the vault was sealed. "We were our own worst enemy. We burned our world with our own hands, but we also loved it more than anything in the universe. If our children return, tell them we are sorry. Tell them to do better. Tell them Earth waits for them." The scientist closed the file and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity's children were receiving the message. And when they came, the galaxy would learn what humans had become after 2,000 years of exile. Had seen what the old humans left behind. Their weapons, their mistakes, their desperate hope. But what had the survivors become? What had 2,000 years of survival in the void done to a species that went from stone tools to space flight in 10,000 years? The answer was coming, and was terrified to find out. The Confederation needed to know. The Council needed to decide what to do about humanity before the children of Earth came home. Because the ruins on Sol 3 had taught one thing: humanity did not give up. Even in death, they planned for the future. Even in extinction, they reached for tomorrow. And that made them the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever seen. 6 weeks passed before Doctor reached the Confederation core worlds. 6 weeks of traveling through jump gates, filing preliminary reports and trying to process what they had seen. The nightmares started on the 3rd day. Every time closed their eyes, they saw those faces pressed against the glass, those empty eyes, those hands reaching out. And they heard screaming. The Confederation Council chamber was built to impress and intimidate. 50 species had representatives there, and the ceiling rose so high it created its own weather system. Stood at the center, a tiny figure surrounded by beings of immense power and influence. "You expect us to believe this?" Counselor of the leaned forward, their armored plates clicking. A dead species suddenly becomes a threat. Projected the images they had captured. The ruins, the cryogenic chambers, the weapons database, and finally the beacon signal. "I expect you to prepare. The beacon has been broadcasting for 6 weeks. If there are human colonies out there, they know something has disturbed there. They will come to investigate." Counselor Rav studied the data with her compound eyes. "This timeline troubles me. 10,000 years from primitive civilization to space flight. That is unprecedented. Most species take 5 to 10 times longer." "Because most species do not push themselves to the brink of extinction in the process," replied. "Humans fought constantly. War drove their innovation. Every conflict made them more dangerous, more adaptable." A representative spoke up. "But they are extinct, or nearly so. The ones in those vaults are damaged, you said so yourself. Even if colonies exist, they have been isolated for 2,000 years. They cannot be a serious threat." Pulled up the weapons database. This is what humans created before they destroyed themselves. Self-replicating war machines. Genetic weapons that could be tailored to attack specific species. Artificial intelligence programs designed for warfare. And these are just the projects we found evidence of. Look at this progression. The timeline appeared on the central display. It showed humanity's technological advancement, marked by major conflicts. Each war pushed them forward. Each crisis made them innovate faster. They went from chemical rockets to quantum drives in less than a century, from splitting atoms to manipulating spacetime in 200 years. And they did all of this while fighting each other. Imagine what they could have done if they had united. "Or imagine what they did do," Ra said quietly. "If colonies survived, they have had 2,000 years to develop without Earth's conflicts holding them back. They could be far more advanced than the ruins suggest." The council erupted in debate. Some wanted to send a military fleet to Sol 3 immediately and destroy the ruins before any humans could arrive. Others argued for caution, saying the Confederation should not make first contact with weapons drawn. A few insisted the whole thing was overblown and humanity was no real threat. Listen to them argue for hours. Finally, they interrupted. "Whether you choose to act or not, something is coming. I saw the readings before we left. The beacon is not just broadcasting, it is receiving. Something out there answered it." That silenced the chamber. Wen demanded. "I do not know, but the signal patterns suggest a response originated from at least 3 different locations. There may be multiple human colonies converging on Sol 3. The council voted. It took 2 more sessions, but finally they reached a decision. A military fleet would be dispatched to the Sol system to establish a perimeter. A scientific team would return to the surface to try to shut down the beacon. And most importantly, a containment protocol would be established. If humans arrived, they would be met with overwhelming force and given a simple choice: submit to Confederation authority or be destroyed. Did not like it, but they understood the reasoning. The Confederation was afraid, and fear made people dangerous. The scientist was assigned to the return mission. They did not want to go back, but they were the only one who had explored the deep vault. They knew the layout. They could guide the team to the beacon's control systems. 3 months after the initial discovery, returned to Sol 3. The world looked the same, dead, barren, but as their ship approached, the defense satellites tracked them. Ancient weapons that should have been inert were active and aware. The military escort had to broadcast Confederation codes and promise peaceful intentions before the satellites allowed them to land. The automated defenses are learning, the military commander noted. They are responding to our codes, adapting to our presence. That should not be possible with technology this old. Said nothing. They were learning because humans had built them to learn. That was what made them so dangerous. The excavation site had changed. The opening they had made months ago was now surrounded by structures that had risen from beneath the ground. Repair drones moved across the surface, rebuilding what time had destroyed. The entire complex was waking up. "Where is all this power coming from?" someone asked. "Check the readings. Geothermal. The humans tapped into the planet's core before they sealed the vaults. As long as Earth has a molten center, these systems can function." They descended into the ruins. The route remembered was different now. Corridors had been cleared of debris. Blast doors stood open. Emergency lighting had been replaced with full illumination. It felt less like a tomb and more like a facility that was simply waiting for its staff to return. The team moved carefully, weapons ready, scanning for threats. They found none. The cryogenic humans were gone, returned to their chambers, or moved to other locations. The medical drones ignored them. The defense robots watched but did not interfere. It was worse than being attacked. It felt like being tolerated. They reached the central chamber, where the beacon's control systems were located. Had not seen this room on the first expedition, but the automated systems had helpfully marked the path. Signs in human writing pointed the way, translated by their computers. Communication array control authorized personnel only. The room was massive, filled with equipment that hummed with active power. At its center stood a control console, and in front of that console sat a human. They were alive, truly alive, not the empty puppets had seen before. This one sat upright, breathing, eyes focused. They wore the uniform of a military officer, perfectly preserved. As the team entered, the human slowly turned to face them. "You came back." The voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper, but understandable. The translation software was not even needed. The human was speaking Confederation standard, though with a heavy accent. The team raised their weapons. The human did not react. How asked, "How are you functioning?" The others we saw were damaged, their minds degraded. The human smiled, though it looked painful. "I am Major Sarah. I volunteered to undergo enhanced preservation protocols. While the others slept in standard cryogenic suspension, I was kept in a medically induced coma with neural maintenance. I wake for 1 hour every decade to check the systems. I have done this 203 times now." They paused. "That is over 2,000 years, yes. My sense of time is imperfect." Why lowered their weapons slightly? Why endure that? Because someone had to make sure the beacon would work when needed. Someone had to wake fully if visitors came. Stood slowly, joints moving stiffly. "I have been waiting for you to return. The beacon called our colonies. They are coming." "We know. We are here to shut down the beacon." "No." His voice remained calm but firm. "You are here because your Confederation is afraid. You found our graves and woke our ghosts, and now you fear what we were, what we might have become. Your species nearly destroyed itself." "Yes." Moved to a window that looked out over a massive chamber below. Thousands of cryogenic pods were visible, stretching into the distance. "We were young and stupid and terrible. We hurt each other and our world, but we learned. Look at what we built here. These vaults were not weapons, they were hope. We knew we were dying, so we saved what we could. Knowledge, art, culture, people. We saved ourselves so that someday someone might remember that humans existed." "And the weapons, the bioweapons and war machines?" Nodded sadly. "Those too. I will not lie to you. Humans were dangerous, but danger and evil are not the same thing. We had the capacity for terrible destruction, but we also had the capacity for incredible creation. We went from caves to space in a blink of cosmic time. We wrote poetry and music that moved souls. We loved and dreamed and hoped even as our world burned. Team leader stepped forward. Major, by authority of the Confederation Council, we are ordering you to shut down the beacon and surrender yourself for questioning. Your colony ships will be intercepted and their inhabitants will be evaluated for potential threat. Compliance is mandatory. Looked at them for a long moment, then they laughed. It was a bitter sound. You think you can stop them. You think you can intercept colony ships that have survived 2,000 years in the void. Those ships carry humans who have known nothing but hardship. They were built by people who watched their world die. They will not be stopped by threats. Then they will be destroyed. No, move to the control console. They will not, because I am going to tell you something that your scans and databases did not reveal. The colony ships were not the only things we sent out. We also sent seeds. The human pulled up a star map. Red dots appeared across it, hundreds of them, spread throughout multiple sectors. Before Earth died, we sent automated terraforming ships to viable worlds. Simple machines with one purpose: prepare planets for human habitation. They have been working for 2,000 years, slowly transforming barren rocks into gardens. Some failed. Many failed, but some succeeded. The colonies did not just survive. They thrived. They spread. Humanity did not die, counselor. We scattered. Felt cold dread settling in their chest. How many? I do not know. The beacon has received responses from 73 sources so far, but there may be more, many more. Some may have been out of range. Some may have chosen not to answer. But they are out there. Children of Earth, grown strange and distant but still human. The team leader aimed their weapon directly at, shut down the beacon, now. I cannot. The protocol locks once activated. Only a human with proper genetic markers can override it, and even then it would take days. Your fleet could bombard this location from orbit and only scatter the signal across multiple backup arrays. Sat down again, looking tired. This was always going to happen. You disturbed a grave. Now you must deal with the consequences. Alarms began wailing throughout the facility. The military escorts commander contacted them through the communication system. We have contacts entering the system. Multiple ships. They are not Confederation design. His expression softened. They are here, my people, the children of the colonies. They heard Earth calling and they came home. Moved to the console and pulled up the orbital data being transmitted from the fleet. Ships appeared on the display. Dozens of them, dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. They were massive, built with strange proportions and covered in what looked like improvised armor. They bore no resemblance to the sleek Confederation vessels. But they moved with purpose and coordination. These were not explorers. This was a fleet. You need to leave, said quietly. My people will want answers. They will want to know who disturbed our world and left our ancestors in torment. I will try to keep them calm, but I cannot guarantee your safety. We have a military fleet in orbit. We outnumber them. Shook their head. You have ships designed for law enforcement and border patrol. They have ships built to survive the void between stars. Do you truly want a test which is more effective in combat? The team leader hesitated, which was answer enough. They contacted the military commander and ordered an immediate evacuation. The team began moving back toward the surface. Remained behind for a moment. Major, the others in the pods, the damaged ones, what will you do with them? Give them peace. His voice cracked slightly. They suffered because of my protocols. I kept them alive when I should have let them go. When my people arrive, we will shut down the systems and let them rest. They deserve that much. I am sorry for what we did, for waking them. I know, and I believe you did not mean to cause harm, but good intentions do not erase consequences. Turned back to the console. Tell your Confederation that humanity has returned. Tell them we do not seek war, but we will not be controlled. Earth is ours. These ruins are ours, and we will defend them. Left the chamber and ran for the surface. Behind them, they could hear beginning a transmission, speaking in a language that had been dead for 2,000 years, calling to the ships that were even now entering orbit. The evacuation was chaos. Ships launched as fast as they could be loaded. The Confederation fleet moved into defensive formation, trying to look authoritative and powerful. But as more human ships arrived, that confidence eroded. There were not dozens. There were hundreds. They came from different directions, different trajectories, suggesting they had originated from multiple colonies spread across the galaxy. Some ships looked ancient, held together by improvised repairs. Others seemed more advanced than they should be. Ship reached orbit and immediately headed for the jump point. Around them, the Confederation fleet was receiving orders from the core worlds. Hold position. Do not fire first. Attempt communication. But the human fleet was not communicating with the Confederation. Their transmissions were all directed toward the surface, toward Earth, toward home. Watched as the first human ships began landing, not near the military vessels but at dozens of sites across the planet. They were going home to ruins, to a dead world, but they were going home. And then one of the human ships changed course. It moved to intercept the Confederation flagship. No weapons were fired, but the message was clear. We see you. We know you are here. A transmission came through on all Confederation frequencies. A human voice, speaking in their language but with an accent that suggested it was recently learned. I am Admiral, Commander of the Diaspora Fleet. You have entered the Sol system and disturbed human sovereign territory. State your purpose. Sovereign territory. They were claiming Earth as their own, even though it was a dead world with no legal standing in Confederation law. The flagship commander responded, "This is Confederation Fleet Commander. We are here on a scientific mission. Your world was believed to be uninhabited. Your scientists woke our preserved ancestors and left them to suffer. That is not science. That is desecration. Explain yourselves." Watch the exchange, feeling the weight of responsibility. This was their fault. They had started this. The negotiations that followed were tense. The Confederation tried to claim authority based on their superior numbers and established law. The humans countered with moral outrage and possession. Earth might be dead, but it was their dead world, their ruins, their legacy. It took 3 days before anyone agreed to meet face to face. Was chosen as part of the Confederation delegation, along with several counselors who had traveled from the core worlds. The humans sent Admiral and a delegation of representatives from different colony worlds. They met on neutral ground, aboard a station the humans had assembled in orbit. It was crude by Confederation standards but functional. The interior showed signs of different human cultures, different approaches to survival. One section was decorated with living plants, carefully tended. Another was stark metal and efficiency. A third showed art covering every surface. Admiral was an older human by their standards, with gray hair and weathered features. They looked nothing like the fragile skeletons had seen in the ruins. These humans were hard, shaped by 2,000 years of survival in hostile environments. "Before we discuss anything else," the Admiral said, "I want to see where my ancestors died." They took him down to the vault. Major Sarah was still there, having refused to leave. When the Admiral saw her, something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. She was from Earth before the fall. He was from the colonies, born in the void. But they shared something deeper than words. "You kept them alive," the Admiral said. "I tried, I failed." "You did not fail. You gave us time to come home." The Admiral walked through the cryogenic chambers, looking at the pods that still held the sleeping humans. Some had been awakened and had suffered. Others had never woken at all. He stopped at each one, reading the names that were displayed. "These are our ancestors, the ones who stayed behind so we could have a future. They were supposed to wake to a healed Earth and rebuild. Instead, they waited in the dark for 2,000 years until strangers disturbed their rest." stepped forward. It was an accident. We thought this was a dead world. We did not know anyone still lived here. But you kept exploring even after you knew. You went deeper. You took data. You studied our weapons and technology. You were not just archaeologists. You were gathering intelligence. The Admiral turned to face them. Tell me I am wrong. Could not. It was true. Once they realized what humanity had been capable of, the expedition had shifted focus. They had started looking for threats instead of just history. We were afraid, admitted. Your species advanced too fast. Your weapons were too dangerous. We needed to understand what kind of threat you might pose. So you judged us by our worst moments, by the weapons we built in fear and